What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. My name is Rich, and find me on all of the socials at rich.piva and doing reviews from Musipedia of Metal as a Doom Charge contributor, a sponsor. This show is a sponsor for the Tampa Doom and Gloom Fest 3. Super excited about that. Turbo is here with me. Turbo, what's up?
Learning as we go.
Yeah. We're learning that my on the fly communication style is not always the best in coordinating things like a podcast. Anyway, we've been working to have this gentleman on our show for a little while now, and we are very excited to have Chuck Robinson on the show. Chuck, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic and couldn't be happier to be hanging out with you guys tonight.
Absolutely. We are very excited to have you on the show. We connected via Todd from Ripple, and the discussion, well, first of all, Todd knows how much of a huge Trouble fan that I am. This is my favorite record of all time, Manic Frustration. And Todd told me that he was doing the last single of for Eric Wagner's material that he created, and um, I he was beaming with honor, and I was so proud that he was doing that, and I was also, excited to hear what this was all about, and he connected us. And I wanted to talk to you to start a little bit about that 7 inch, how it came to be, what role you played in it, and just whatever else you want to mention about it. It's called Eulogy, and it are two songs that were released a couple months ago via Ripple Music on a couple different versions. So tell everybody about that if you don't mind.
So so we can go two routes. We could talk about how the original song came about first, or how the single came about, because it's
Let
almost two different things.
let's start with the single, because then I want to dive into, because the second song on here is a Trouble cover, right? So I want to let's start with how the single came to be, and then we'll talk about how these songs
O
came to be, if you don't mind.
okay. So, uh, let me think a second. Okay. So Victor Arduini from Fates Warning actually was the Kickstarter. Um, he was trying to put together a Trouble tribute record per se, you know. Um, and he was working on the Misery Shows tune. Is it Misery Shows? I can't remember what it's been a long week. And and he was like he was talking about doing that and putting that out, and he was working with Butch Ballage, which was in Kulvera with me for a minute, and Butch was, we were talking, and he needed a Ron Holzner was gonna play bass on it. Then Victor asked me to play 12 string on it, and I said, "Yeah, man, I'll play the 12 string. I know all the parts. I hung out with Bruce for, you know, better part of 10 years. I know the parts." So I did that, and then Ron was having, like, the skull and this, and, like, his scheduling was off, and I'm like, "Well, I was the bass player in Trouble for a while. I may know the bass parts to that tune."
Maybe, right? Yeah, just maybe.
So he's like, "Well, just track it when you do the 12 string." And I'm like, "Fine, we'll do it." So that song just came together, and Dave, the drummer in Culvera, who is one of my best friends, he played in Trouble for a while during Plastic Green Head. Um, so he did the drums, then I got involved on a level. Butch was in the neighborhood, he was involved, and it just sounded amazing. Like, it really sounded amazing. And I think Butch was talking to, or Victor was talking to Todd at Ripple about that's who was gonna do this or something, you know? And then, the more we started talking, there was, when we did the Eric Wagner, record, Lonely Light of Morning, um, there was a song on there that was very special to Eric and I, and it was gonna be on Simple Mind Condition, and then he is like, "I don't want it on Simple Mind Condition, we're gonna save it." Then we were gonna do it on Blackfinger, and he's like, "I don't want it on Blackfinger, we're gonna save it," you know? So we recorded it for this record, and then the record was too long for the vinyl. And he goes, "Listen, we're gonna pull that one, and we're gonna do something special." Me and him wrote it in his house, 2005, and he just really held on to it, you know? He was like that. So anyway, so when I was talking to Todd, I said, "You know, there's a song that Eric recorded last that didn't go on the record that I would love for something to happen with." And he is like, "What you talking about, Willis?" You know? And, so I said it to him, and he was like, "Oh, this has to happen." And it went from in the way on my end, because none of us live together, you know what I mean? This is all over the phone, and the thought process changes from person to person. And he was like, "What if we did a single?" And we put that out and made it super special, that last song. And then we did the cover tune because you're on it, Dave's on it, um, of course, Eric's on it, and that was it. So Victor goes, "Well, let me master it so it matches the other record, the other song." And I was like, "Sure, you want it to be cohesive, you know?" And when he heard it, he was like, "Would you mind if I just kind of played some melodic things over it?" You know? And I was like, "Oh, no, man. Well, I really don't wanna do that. I don't want it." He goes, "Just hear me out. Let me do it. You could tell me no, and I will honor that. That's fine." He sends me this track, and I'm like, "It sounds like it's always been there. Like, what you did is so part of that immediately," you know? And, and of course, Todd loved it. Everybody loved it. We were like, "So this is what's gonna happen." And that's what we did. It took forever to do. Um, when you have everybody living in different states and different places and everybody's in other bands and doing things, it takes a minute. But boy, do I think it was worth it. And I think he was honored properly in that, you know. And it was really nice because at the end of the day, the record is all the same people except Butch sings on one side and Eric sings on the other.
It's very cool. It's
You
it's
know,
very
and
cool.
and it was so really not, it wasn't thought out, like, it was not contrived to do that. It really just happened,
Happened the way it was supposed to.
and it
And
really couldn't have been any better. It really couldn't have. And in hindsight, like, Eric and Victor didn't know each other, but if Eric would have heard Victor play, he would have had him all over the solo record because all the solos were done by different people, you know? Like, there was a lot, like, a lot of people that, I did all the rhythm tracks, Dave did a rhythm track, I did some of the bass stuff, then Ron played bass, McAllister, original treble bass player, played a tune. So it was a family affair, you know? But I really think if he would have known Victor, he would have wanted 100% for Victor to be on it. I really believe that.
it's there was something to Rest in Peace, the record that obviously was it's an amazing record, and there's so much to it, but the fact that there was something else and there was another kind of way to kind of pay tribute to this giant of that people just loved, from as a musician standpoint, and then I know people genuinely who knew him did as well. Um, this is a great and to trust Todd with it. I'm not sure anybody could have done as good of a job as he did putting this out and promoting
I
it and
I highly
making
doubt
it
it.
happen.
I highly doubt it. And the record came out on Cruz del Sur, and Enrico did a great job with the record, and nothing against Enrico. He ran it. I think his mom fell ill, and then he kind of like got out of the circle for a minute, and that's kind of where Todd came in, and I'm like, boy, I almost wish that Todd would have did the record, you know, like
He
the solo, just
it was
having
not
it.
easy to get.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't like I could just go order it on Bandcamp when it dropped. There was, like, international shit. It was a whole thing. Like, it's kinda like when and we love Heavy Psych Sounds, but it's hard to get a Heavy Psych Sounds record, like, when it drops and when it's ready because it comes from Italy and they do other things, but, yeah, the I just really love the way that this all happened, and I want to spend time talking about because you mentioned Eric, you mentioned Trouble, you mentioned some of the other bands that he was in, but I wanted to talk about kind of your career and all the amazing things that you have been involved in, and Turbo has probably been right along with me as a fan of your work for a while. Turbo, do you have a question for Chuck in regards to anything maybe that the single, the solo record, or anything else that he's been involved in as we dive into a little bit of Chuck Robinson history, if you don't mind?
I only have a cou only I was only curious about a couple of things, but one of them was with Trouble when he started and what you felt like you brought, um, to the band on that album, and were you kinda stoked. I was assuming it's your bass sound that you hear first on the album. Were you kinda stoked that's what you hear, that just like where you're being introduced to the band that way, or being
you know,
introduced to the fans that way?
so so that I didn't even realize that till well after the record came out. I was, you know, but when weird thing with the whole Trouble thing is, if you don't mind, I'll start kind of at the beginning. You know,
Alright.
so a very good friend of mine in Pittsburgh. This is 1995. 1995. Trouble's getting ready to go out on the Plastic Greenhead tour, and they were Century Media. They were on Century Media. Century Media was buying ads in magazines. There was a local from Pittsburgh called Decor, and one of my best friends owned it, and it was like hardcore heavy metal, like local rag. My best One of my best friend Eric Corbin owned it, and he calls me one day and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "these dudes from Century Media, they said they'll buy like 5 pages if I do like a 2 page thing on the new Trouble record." And he's like, they're not my band. He goes, "But I know you love them. You want to do the phoner," because I would do reviews, record reviews and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like they were my like favorite band growing up. Like that was the band, Like that was the freaking band for me, you know? And so he's like, "Okay, I'll have Eric call you." So Eric calls my house, and me and him talked for 4 hours on the phone, and
Awesome.
most of it had nothing to do with the interview, and we just, like we clicked, man, we just clicked, and so after we were talking for a couple hours, he goes, "Hey, man, you know a good drummer?" And I'm like, "Man, my drummer's one of the best drummers around, dude." I'm like, "And we probably know half of the Trouble set already. We jam tunes all the time," And at this point, plastic had just come out, few people had it, but, and, he goes, "What's his name?" And I said, "Dave Snyder," and he's like, he goes, "Never heard of him." I'm like, "Well, of course you didn't hear him. You didn't hear me until 3 hours ago," you know? And, he goes, "I tell you what," he goes, "Send me a picture and give me his phone number," and he goes, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." So, I send him a couple, like, live videos, I think, or something. Next thing you know, he goes, "When can you guys come out?"
Hmm.
So I called Dave and I'm like, "Hey man, what are you doing? I got you an audition for Trouble." And he's like, "What are we talking about, dude?" I'm like, "Listen, we're getting in my dad's van and we're going to Chicago next week. These are the songs you need to know?" So we show up in Chicago. Eric comes out the night before. We go get way too hammered for any kind of auditioning the next day. Um, but Dave does a fantastic job. The guys loved him. Um, Here's where it gets funny. Ron Halsner couldn't show up he was in Los Angeles or something for some reason and couldn't make it. And Dave's like, "Why?" He like didn't want to play without a bass player, and I'm like, "Eh." Eh, just happened to have a bass rig in the van, you know. So I jammed with him, like for Dave's audition. And we had a freaking blast. We just had a blast. And I've got a video of that somewhere. So then we went home and then they wanted Dave to come out again. Then Dave went out by himself and he got it. He got the gig. So I ended up going back out with Dave to Chicago from Pittsburgh to hang out, when I wanted to be there for his, debut and all the thing. And then Bruce was like, "Hey man, I need a tech. Do you know stuff about tech?" And I'm like, "Yeah, build guitars, man. Whatever you want to do." So then I became Bruce and Ron's guitar tech for the tour,
Killer.
you know? And then Dave was playing, I was there. We did the tour, got along fantastically. Tour ended. Then they went to Europe. I didn't go. Dave went to Europe. Um, then Dave kind of like I think Ole wanted to come back or something, and Dave was doing something else, and then they kind of broke up. Like after that, they kind of disbanded for a while. So then let's jump forward a minute. Eric wanted to do the Lid record. I don't know if you guys ever heard the Lid record or not.
Oh, I love the Lid record. It's, yeah.
So long story short, Dave and some other guys was in that. Eric moved into my house in Pittsburgh to write a record in my basement rehearsal studio with Dave and our local friends. Then that kind of didn't pan out for some reason. I don't know exactly. I kind of kept my distance from it, even though they lived in my house. But as the days go, me and Eric are becoming like, that. And then Dave kind of bowed out. The bass player bowed out, and Eric flew in Danny Kavanagh from England, from Liverpool, that's from Anathema. And so Danny moves into my house. And then Eric's like, "You know any cats that can do this?" And I'm like, and it really wasn't my thing, like that the hippie thing, that like wasn't
Yeah.
me. And Eric
It
knew
was
that.
definitely a different vibe of
Yeah,
From Trouble. It's Candy for Me. I love that Lid
yeah.
record. Yeah,
So I
bang.
go, I got these two brothers that like I'm best friends with. Actually, the bass player on that record I'm in a cover band with, he was here last night. Timmy Reeves. Tommy, the drummer, has passed away. But I brought them two guys over out of nowhere. And after they played for like an hour, Eric like grabbed me by the shirt and he's like, "Where you been hiding these two guys at?" So they did the record. Vinny Wayno, producer from California, came in, recorded the record, kind of Pittsburgh, drums and bass, guitar was in Pittsburgh. I think Eric did his vocals in Chicago. Wonderful record. Me and Eric never lose touch. So when Trouble got back together again, Ron wasn't going to do it. Ron was like, I'm not, I don't even think he was living in Chicago at the time. And I remember I was sitting in Pittsburgh, it was snowing like freaking crazy. I was watching the Steelers play the Browns in my cell phone. I had a cell phone way back then for some reason. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, watching the Steelers beat the Browns. And he goes, "I got something better for you to do." And I'm like, "What's that?" And he goes, "Get in the car and come out here." He goes, "You're going to audition, and we're going to hire bass players, book of bass players." And I'm like, "Hmm? What do you want me to know?" They gave me a list. I went out, and I was in the band. Then we did a couple
Amazing.
tours. We did the live in Stockholm thing right away. Like that was kind of right away. Then we did the Unplugged record.
They just released that live in Stockholm as a live, like on vinyl, right? Didn't they just repress it, I think?
Yeah. It was a redo. It had come out on CD and DVD from the original Swedish label, but that new label that they have, like, released even the Rick Rubin stuff. They was like, we're just gonna do it, you know.
I think it is.
Yeah, Hammerheart. Yep. So, that came out, then the Unplugged came out, and then we did Simple Mind, and that was, like there was just zero issues with anything in there was a couple little financial issues that were going on, and the price of gas went through the ceiling. We wasn't making any money, and I lived 8 hours away. So, and that's kind of when I bowed out, 2009. I just kind of was like, man, I love you guys, but I just I can't afford to do this. I don't live here. I'm not moving here. I can't go out on the road for a month and not make what I would make to support a home and, wife and 2 kids at the time. Yeah. And, that was that. Well, oddly, back to that, Eric had quit before I quit.
I was going to ask you about that because
You know?
you played on the Live in Los Angeles record with Corey Clark singing, correct?
Yes.
I have questions about that. I'm sure Turbo might also too, as a
Yeah.
Warrior Soul fans.
Yeah. You are or aren't?
Are
Okay,
for
good,
sure.
good, good.
Yeah.
There are so many Corey Clark stories that I will not tell you on here, but me and that guy are like that. We had a rock and roll blast on those tours. Me and that guy, man. And we talk all the time, we're still great friends, but and he will be the first to say this, and I'll be the second. He is no Eric Wagner. And
So it's an interesting thing because as Trouble fans and as Warrior Soul fans, I know like I kind of took a step back and I was like, that's an interesting match. Turbo, I don't know what your opinion was at the time of when, Corey Clark took over as the singer. Were you listening at the time? Did you have an opinion at the time or?
Every time I hear him sing, I kept wanting him to sing Downtown.
What's that?
Every time I was hearing him sing, I wanted him to throw Downtown in somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Right. I mean, we had a blast, and it was way more of a rock and roll circus when Corey was in the band because, he's his own circus. He really is. But he's just a wonderful guy. He really, you just got to get him. That's all, But, all right, I'll say this because he won't be mad if he hears this. He did not want to sing the lyrics from like the first 2 records.
I mean, they're you have to have a certain vibe and a
Yeah.
certain point of view to like, yeah, I get it. It's
He wa he was just like, "This is dinosaur rock." He wanted to bring Trouble into the next, you know, movement, but he really just didn't freaking wanna do the old stuff. Like,
yeah.
he didn't even
Well,
wanna do the old stuff.
you look at the Live in Los Angeles record, I think they're all songs from like Manic onward, if I'm not
Yeah, pretty
mistaken.
much, yeah.
Um, so, but I mean, if you look at Trouble, they were kind of two different bands, like two eras of the band, even if the lineup didn't change that
Yeah,
much. You had
pre-Rick
the
Rubin
traditional, yeah,
and yeah, and post-Rick Rubin.
yeah, exactly, and I think people love them. It's interesting how much people who are fans of Trouble love both of those eras of Trouble because they are very different. Like they are to me they're very very different. Both
Well,
I
and
love
and
them both.
something
I lean more towards the Rubin stuff, but
yeah, something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot is that first record. A lot of those songs were written by the original bass player, not Sean McAllister. Um, Ian Brown, Tim Brown wrote The Tempter, wrote Revelation. Like those were like his riffs. And then I think he joined the military or something, and was like, "Ah, just keep this, no hard feelings, whatever, I'm out." So that dude really, truth be told, set the tone for what Trouble did. Now, I mean, once he was gone, they still sounded like Trouble for a couple records, you know what I mean? But, you know, Bruce is, you know, uh, John Roth and Mahogany Rush, like that's Bruce. And Rick is UFO and Aerosmith. So it was not hard for those guys to just transition into like this 70s vibe killer rock and roll band.
yeah.
It really
It
wasn't hard because that's really where their heart was.
what's funny is I came into it late. I came into it. I saw an article. I think Spin magazine of like the 25 records that you need to hear that you haven't, and it was Manic. And then I went and bought it. And then you see the video, Big Headbangers Ball guy in the back in the day, and you see the video for Memories Garden, you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how
Yeah.
did I miss what's happening with this band? And then the next thing you know, someone's painting the Manic Frustration cover on my denim jacket, and everyone's like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, it's Trouble, man. If you don't know, you better go find out. But like, and then backwards from there, like I didn't even wasn't even aware of the self-titled Rubin record, which I was very excited to find out later on how awesome that was. Um,
In my top 5 of all time.
the and
Of
it's
all
interesting. I think most if you polled most people, they'd probably put that record above Manic. Um, I I go Manic all day, but not because I don't love the first record. Turbo, where do you stand in that argument?
Well, Manic was right outside my top 100, or was it in my 100?
I
No, it
think it
was in
was in
my,
your
like, 50, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Let's just say that.
Well, there's
What
great songs on it. The mix threw me a little bit on that one. It was a little thin compared to the first Rick Rubin record. That 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 swayed me, but I mean, you can interchange songs off of those 2 records and make different records, and I don't think anybody would know the difference, you know what I mean? Fear, Sleeper, uh, I mean, those are oh, man.
so as a fan, was I guess which songs were you most looking forward to play as a member of Trouble, were there ones that tripped you up a little bit? Like, you're like, this is harder than I thought it was," or, "This is a little more complex as a
Uh,
player than I thought." Anything that you
all
were,
of
like,
them.
it surprised.
No, wickedness of mankind, uh, end time when we were doing like we're gonna go to Europe, we're gonna do some of these early tunes, and it was like I knew them in my head, but boy, to play 'em's a whole different story, brother. Let me tell you. And I remember, that Bruce and me and Bruce, like when I was learning the songs, we worked together like all the time, and on learning them. And I would go home and honestly, I was living in Florida at the time. I was in Jacksonville. And I would go home and I would print out blank music sheets. And I would sit with my headphones on and I would learn a measure at a time. And then I would write out the music, learn the next one, measure it out. By the time I got to the end of the song, I freaking knew that tune, man. You know, and I remember going out to Bruce's right before we were going on tour, and he goes, "Let's go over this. I want to make sure you're playing the stuff, right." And I sat down, and he was like, "Wow, man, that's awesome." And I'm like, he goes, "How'd you do it?" And I'm like, I broke out all my sheets, and I'm like, "Yeah, here you go." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know nothing about that stuff, man." But that's how it was. And then me and Ole, like, I was staying with Eric in Aurora, and Ole, the drummer, Ole, Bruce, and Eric kinda grew up on the same block. Like, they went to high school together and stuff. Rick lived in the city. And, Ole would come in, stay with his mom and dad, just right around the corner from Eric's, and I would go over there, and Ole would set up a little drum set, out on the sun porch, and I took my little 15-inch bass amp, and we literally, and for 100% true, we would play the entire set, start to finish, without any breaks, in order, 3 times a day, every day of the week. Just
Man.
drums and bass. Just drums and
Just drums and bass. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
just drums and bass. And and it made a big difference in the band, like, it really like, I'm not saying good or bad, but, like, it was tight. Like, it was super tight, and, we had a blast doing it, we all got really close and, it wasn't like just guys in a van, you didn't know each other, like, I was living with these guys and just going around to their houses and learning different things and doing stuff. It was just amazing. It was completely surreal because, like, I was probably their biggest fan. So, it was just, you know back to a question that you asked a while ago, how did I feel doing that? The first year was a blur. Like, it was just a blur, like, I couldn't believe I was doing it, I just couldn't, you know? But, I mean, it was, an amazing time. It we, we were signed to Escapee over in Sweden. They were flying us over there all the time to hang out and do stuff. Um, then I met the guys from Candlemass, became friends with them. Then I started, like, not going home. Like, I was just, like, kinda living in Sweden, man. I was just, like, hanging out over there, and I started working for the record label doing graphic design with them.
Which you did some of the art for some, I believe the Blackfinger record, at least I saw that you
I
did some
did
artwork with that,
the
right?
first Blackfinger, I did the first Skull record. Simple Mind Condition I did. I did the Live in Los Angeles with the cluster of Trouble logos in the circle. I did that. Yeah, all kind of stuff. I ended up doing some stuff for Carmine Apiece, Pat
Yeah.
Travers. I did stuff for him, all from working at the label. So it was fun.
Travers apparently lives, like, around the corner from me, and I just need to track him down, like,
Are
he's
you around Orlando?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Melbourne, that area,
he
yeah.
he's right there, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna run into him at some point. Like,
Mhm.
I'm hoping that I do. I hope I run into him before I run into Bobby Dahl from Poison, who
Yeah,
apparently lives around here too.
yeah. That
But
and his wife, Monica, are amazing people.
I
Beautiful,
hope to
wonderful people.
run into him at some point. Um, it's just it's amazing to go from a huge fan of the band to, like, being in the van with them, being friends with those guys, being tight with Eric, being able to be a part of, like, you know, unfortunately and super sadly, the final chapter in what that and I'm not going to ask you to get into that, but um, I feel like I don't want to speak for you, but, like, I feel like you and just the vibe that I get from you and talking and our chatting, that it's been just kind of an honor to be a part of how this has all kind of come to fruition with the single, the last
You're
solo album, and everything else.
you have no idea. I mean, and, when we got into well, so from Simple Mind, then Eric did Blackfinger, and I was they Eric wanted me in Blackfinger, um, but I didn't live in Chicago. Um, so there's 2 songs on the first Blackfinger record that I wrote, but I wasn't in the band. Um, then the Skull happened, and he wanted me in the Skull, and I'm like, "Yeah," I was gonna do the Skull. Um, because he goes, "We're just gonna write a record. We're gonna do maybe 1 or 2 shows, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna play guitar. I want you to play guitar. Ron's playing bass. Everybody's excited to have you. Lothar wants you to play. We're gonna have a great time." Cool. Then Ron calls and goes, "So I got these like 12 shows booked in Europe." And I'm like, "I'm not going to Europe, man." I'm like, "I can't do it." Like, I got a really good day job at the time. And I'm like, I just bought a home. I'm like, I can't just get up and go. Eric said we weren't going to do this. And he goes, "Well, that was the plan, but like now." So then I didn't do it. And it was not other than I just couldn't make it happen, you know? So that flies. And then, oh man, Eric and Dave Snyder, my drummer, they talked all the time. And Dave is a wonderful songwriter. For a drummer, he's a great guitar player, wonderful writer. Him and Eric had written a good handful of tunes. And Eric's like, "I want to do a solo record. It's not Blackfinger, it's not the Skull, it's going to be me." And he wanted to use Dave's songs, and he goes, "And I want to use these like 3 songs that you wrote, and then there was 2 songs that me and Dave co-wrote, together. So how would you feel about doing the record?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah,." And we talked about going to Chicago to do it, and I was like, "Listen, Dave's gonna cut drums at his home, not home studio, but like the studio Dave likes to cut drums in that's close to his house. They know his tone, they know his drums, blah, blah, blah. It's right by his house." I'm like, "Let's just go there." Then we started talking about tracking the guitars at the house, and then I'm like, "Listen, we're gonna do everything there. We're gonna do all the rhythms, a couple of the solos, all the drums in 2 days." And he is like, "All right, but I wanna watch." And he wouldn't come out. So we set up this in the studio for Eric to be in the corner watching everything we were doing.
Hmm.
And gl and if you you have to know the comedic genius of Eric Wagner to understand what it was like having the Wizard of Oz over in the corner commenting on everything you were. I'm like, "Can't we put a towel over that freaking thing over there?" You know? but man, it came out so good. And then all the tracks got sent out to Chicago to Eric's home, not home studio, but where he liked to record, Alpha Star, and he finished up the record there. You know, there was a couple of regrets. We had Mike Amott from Spiritual Beggars was going to do a couple of solos, and me and Mike are pretty good friends, and he couldn't do it because he was literally packing things to move to Japan when we were like, hey, can you track some stuff? And he's like, man. And then when Eric died, he called me and goes, man, do I regret that? You know, like that was super like hard pill to swallow, you know? And that's just kind of how that record happened, man. It was, you know, it was definitely a labor of love and did not happen in 6 months. You know, like Eric and Dave started working on them tunes 2, 3 years, you know, before they had them dialed in. And you had to know Eric to understand how it was to write with Eric because it wasn't easy. You know, he, he would want things. Can you do it like this? Now do it like this. Now do it like this. Now take that verse and put it here. Take the end verse, put it over on the top. Play these two together, and then you know what I mean. And you didn't. The song. Here it is. The song wasn't done till you were done recording it, and until the tape went to go get mastered, there was still a chance it wasn't done. There was still a chance that he would go, you know, maybe. And if he was living today, without a doubt in my mind, strike me if I'm lying, Eric Wagner, he would have went, we should have did this. We should have.
It's it, I mean, it was obviously very sad and awful when he passed, but it's amazing that you got to have those kind of memories with him,
Right.
became friends and create with someone like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
listen, that record, man, like Eric, they finished mixing it and it went to mastering, and he was like, I gotta have this record mastered and in the can because I'm going on tour with the Skull, like let's say Friday. You know, I gotta have the record approved before I leave because I can't think about that while I'm doing this. He okayed the master and was dead 10 days later.
Mm.
You know, never saw it come out. I mean, and that's hard. That's hard to say. It's hard to even think about for me and for a lot of us, you know. Um, but I mean, it was that close, you know. He was under that kind of pressure with himself all the time to make things the best that it was, and this and that, you know.
And his art shows that, like the stuff that remains and the stuff that came out, like there's not anything that I would not call just top quality stuff that just lives on and is just beautiful, just amazing music that he was able to create with all versions of the bands that he's
So
been involved
to to me, like to go back to probably the most special moment in my time with that group of people. So on the Wagner record, there's a song called Isolation. Okay. I wrote that song in 95. And that was a song that was from my old band, This Tortured Soul. And Eric heard that because we opened for them, and he lived at my house. He knew what was going on, and he's like, "That song's a jam. That song's a jam. You know, you should let me have that song." I'm like, "No, it's going on my record." So, you know, years later, he's like, "I think we should do Isolation on this record." And I'm like, "All right, have at it. What do you wanna do?" And we didn't really change it much, man. There's a couple little, like, this goes longer than this kind of things, but he wanted that song since '95, man. He when he would hear a riff, he like, he wouldn't let up. It's like, "Oh, no, 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 I got something to do with that," you know? In in my, the band that I had, This Tortured Soul, it was a really, really good band, and we did a really good record too. But there was like this big melodic singing, like our singer was like he could do like Rob Zombie and Bruce Dickinson. So he would be back and forth on these vocal things. And he did this big melodic thing in the middle, and Eric was just having no part of that. He's like, "That's got to go," and this is the way we're going to do it, you know. And and 20 some years later, it sounded amazing. And and I requested since I'm just the hugest Trouble fan, growing up. So there's a song that I wrote, Eric singing on, my best friend Dave playing drums on it. Um, I played the solo, and I said to Eric, I was like, "Is Sean going to play bass on anything?" Sean McAllister from the first two Trouble records. And he goes, I was going to ask him, yeah, man. I'm like, I want him to play on Isolation. So to me, growing up, listening to them and just them being my band, now there's a song that I wrote and those two guys are on it. And
It's
it was,
amazing.
to me, like, even this far along in the career was just mind blowing to me. Just absolutely, probably the biggest honor I've ever had.
It's amazing. And how cool is it that
Yeah,
he
it's really
remembered that song and still wanted that song and it wound up on the solo
Oh,
record after hearing it? And
no, he would. It's not amazing. He didn't forget anything. It was 100% par for the course. Eric Wagner.
obviously, given Trouble is one of my all-time favorite bands, I could talk to you about this all day. But what I want to do for at least this portion or this volume one of our podcast, because I would love to have you back on, is to tell us what you're up to today. Because you and I talked a little bit about a project that you have coming out. You mentioned the name a couple times earlier.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, tell everybody what Chuck Robinson and crew are up to these days, and what kind of stuff we can expect, as much as you can talk about stuff you
No,
can
no, no.
expect
I
from
can
this
talk
new
about
project.
all of that stuff.
good.
So we will go. I'll start it with this. When we were doing the song with Butch, and all that was starting to happen, um, we were getting together, like me and Butch, we were talking, and I'd known Butch for years. He's a Pittsburgh cat. So like we had known each other forever. Then let me get it right. Uh, Ron called me and said, Ron Halsner, and he goes, we're going to do this Eric Wagner memorial in Chicago. I would like to have you and Dave put something together to represent the solo record, because obviously they weren't going to play those songs. None of them knew those songs. Although Ron played on a couple of songs, but he didn't know the tunes. Um, and I'm like, yeah, man, I could put a band together. That's not really hard, you know. Um, I had Dave, uh, instantly, Ron goes, "I was thinking maybe you could ask Butch." I'm like, "I wouldn't ask anybody else but Butch." I'm like, That's just how that's gonna go down." Um, and then Matt Cross, who had played on the last Blackfinger record and played on the solo record, he played a couple bass tunes on that. He lives 10 miles from me. Um, so I asked Matt. Matt's like, "Absolutely, I'd love to be part of it." So we needed another guitar player, and Greg Ball he was in Earthride when Sherman died. He was a guitar player, and he lives right down the road from me. So I'm like, and Earthride had just done a tour with Blackfinger or the Skull or one of the bands, and so it just seemed natural to ask him. So we learned, I don't know, 10 songs, 8 songs, something like that, from the solo record, and I think we did a couple other things. And we rehearsed a handful of times, went out to Chicago and did the show. And frankly, we blew everybody away, including ourselves. Like, we were like, "That was fantastic, fellas. You know, what are we going to do next?" And that's really how it started. So after that show, we just started writing tunes, you know. Butch decided he lived a little bit far away and he had some things going on. Had some writer's block and some this and that. And he was just like, "It's just not a really good time. Like right now, it's just not a good time." And I was like, "Okay, I get you, man. We're friends. We talk like friends. We really wasn't off the ground to go, oh no, it just logistically wasn't for him at the time." So I have a friend, Justin Herb, who sings and plays guitar with Lost Psychonaut,
An
who
excellent band who I'm very familiar with.
right. Well, Justin lives 45 minutes from me. So, and I designed I did the album artwork for them. So I had just got done finishing that job and working with Justin like every day. And the drummer on that record, Tristan, was in my cover band. So we all knew each other. So I called Justin and I'm like, "Have you ever just sang in a band without playing guitar?" And he goes, this is a quote, "If you're asking, yes, I'll do it." And he came over and it was just like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy, man. You're the guy. We're gonna have a blast." We got down in the bunker and wrote a fantastic record. Um, Todd wants it. It's gonna come out on Ripple. We're hoping August. He said if we have everything to him rolled up in a nice little package by June, we will have August. The band's called Kulvera. We have not named the record yet. Um, the songs are all recorded. We are about 50% done mixing. I would imagine within the next 30 days we'll be done.
Excellent.
And can't wait for you to hear it. It's I mean, it's the sum of all its elements. I mean, there's some Trouble, there's some Lost Psychonaut, there's some, Eric Wagner solo. You can't take. There's Earthride. You can't take those elements and throw them away. They're just different with this group of guys playing them. You know, uh, if I had a lot of COC, a lot of Down influences, a lot of, Thin Lizzy, Trouble. Sabbath, of course. It's
Bring it.
it's that kind of deal. You
People are gonna
know,
love that. I can guarantee you that.
I don't think there's a sleeper song on it. They're all a little different, but they're all just so good.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I mean, there are, so I have to say that, Oh, fuck, man. I don't even know what I'm doing.
it couldn't be coming out on a better label for what you guys do, the vibe you guys have. Ripple's the
I
best.
gotta I gotta absolutely agree with you with that, man. Like, Todd is just man, it was the chance meeting with that guy, and he is just the coolest cat in town, man. He just is,
Yeah,
and he's got a good way of doing things and a great ear. He loves music, you
yeah.
know?
His taste is he doesn't miss with what comes out. Like there's not a record that we're like, ah, what are you thinking, Todd? It's like he doesn't miss with what he puts out, and I'm very excited because he'll be a Floridian soon. So I can go and I can dig in his record collection at some point and start
Oh,
to
he's moving?
yeah.
He's coming
I don't
down
know if
that
I'm
way?
breaking news not here or anything,
No.
but I have to make sure I can say that out loud. But yeah. So fellow Floridian at some point where I'm trying for Ripple Fest, Florida. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best
Listen,
to
I'm
get
trying to
that
get
going.
one for Pittsburgh. Calm down, buddy.
Chuck, this
No.
has been friggin' amazing. I know we worked to coordinate this a bunch. We had snowstorms, we had work things, we had all sorts of stuff that got in the way of this. But here it is, and I could not be happier with the conversation, the discussion. New band Kulvera, was super excited about that. I want to have you back on to talk about all sorts of crazy
Absolutely.
stories about touring and the people who you interacted with on those tours and all that stuff. But we've got an hour, and I want to give you some of your time and life back, and also have multiple times where we have you on. Chuck
I'd be
Robinson,
yeah,
like
man.
so amazing. For those of you who don't have the Eric Wagner eulogy single yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. There is only one remaining from in Europe right now for one. One of the colors sold out. Like, go buy it. It's ridiculous that you don't have it if you don't have it. Um, Kulvera, August, right?
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah.
August. And Chuck, thank you so much. It's been amazing, and I really, really appreciate your time.
Would we miss anything? Is there any last questions? Anything you're just dying to
Oh
know?
no, volume two. I'm gonna have a whole like. I mean, this is not the end for sure. So, and that's what you call in the biz, in the podcast biz, a teaser for the next episode that we
Yeah.
have you on. So
Maybe, if we do when we do the next Culvera, we could have Dave or another guy in there too, because I'm gonna tell you, Dave's got some stories too, man, and,
bring the whole band, bring all the band. Like
I'll make
when
Dave tell stories that he won't wanna say if I'm not there.
when the pre-order when the pre-order is about to get up,
Yeah,
let's get the whole band on here
that'd be
if that works for you.
fantastic. We'd have a
Awesome.
blast. We'd have a blast.
Thank you so much, Chuck. This has been amazing, and thank you
Thank
so
you,
much. And
sir.
nice to meet
Nice
you and
meeting you
talk to you.
guys. Great
You
talking
too,
to you.
man.
We'll,
Thank you.
we'll thanks for wearing the Trouble shirt. Next time we'll get you a Culvera shirt.
I look forward to it. I can't wait. I will wear it with pride.
What size are you?
Extra large, baby. Bring it.
Turbo. What size is
Um,
Turbo?
3X.
3?
Yeah,
I'll see if I got any 3s left. If not, we'll get you one. I'll send you some shirts.
Thank you, Chuck.
that's
It's
cool, man.
amazing. Thank
All
you
right,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you so much.